students to this talk today. This is my 20th talk to students and to industry, and I love giving such a talk where I interact with the young guys, young and old guys all together. This topic I have already given to 2, 3 institutes. However, based on some feedback, I do make some changes suiting the audience. And topic for today is shale gas drilling and production, and it will cover basically drilling and production. However, some introduction and then a little bit about the exploration also to make it a complete subject. And just give me a minute. I will just start. I'll set my things first. It's okay, Professor?
Yes, sir. Please take your time. No problem. Nataraj sir has also joined. He's with us.
Yeah, I could see him.
Good morning, Verma sir.
Good morning,
How are
good
you?
morning. How are you?
I'm good, sir. I'm good. Nice
Oh,
to have you here and present.
yeah.
Always a pleasure, sir.
You have got it on the screen or not?
Yes, sir. Please make it full screen.
I'll just do that.
Yes, sir.
Is it now visible? Full screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just give me one more minute, just.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Professor, for giving me this opportunity to interact with your team, your students, faculty members. And just to start with, I'll go for safety contact. I'm sure you must be aware from the news papers, etc., that in the month of May, in Bombay offshore, there was one of the most catastrophic accident in offshore in Indian waters, where somewhere like 85, 86 construction workers and their engineers, they lost their life. And it was due to severe cyclonic weather condition. And that's why I always say that safety is very, very important, though we have latest of the technologies, all the safety systems, but somewhere either due to nature or due to some human failure, these do happen. And that's why safety is very, very important. This slide is basically on the human part of it. And there are certain golden hours for accident. 6 to 9 morning, 6 to 9 evening, and during shift change. So these are very, very important times. And the reason is very simple. Just imagine just now, I'm in Atlanta and 6 to 9 morning. I got up and I'm a bit sluggish. I'm not that furtila as of now to run or do something. It takes some time. And imagine yourself, you are going towards evening. You must be feeling a bit tired. And it must be a little bit trying for you to involve yourself in this talk. But this is, so we have to be very, very careful during these morning and evening hours. And shift change is one time where everybody is in a hurry to do their jobs, or they are in a hurry to go home. So these are very, very important time. And believe me, when I'm saying this, I've seen so many incidents, accidents happening during these hours, and they're very, very important. You all will be working somewhere in the industry in coming months or years, and please take care of these times, these hours. And my request is, please put your questions in chat box. Sit back, relax, and learn. Enjoy. And whatever learning will be there, I can't guarantee that it will be too much of a learning, but yes, I will certainly sow some seeds or just give you some ideas so that you can learn more. That is what I always say. Content is, as I told you, what is unconventional shale gas oil. I'll have some details and then some few slides on exploration and geosciences, and basically how to get sweet spot. Then about drilling and hydrofracturing, production operations, and some issues on optimization, initiatives, research opportunities, and what is my takeaway from today's talk. What it is, unconventional shale. If you just see here, I'll just go to that cursor and there's a pointer. Okay, then just see this diagram. On top it is conventional oil, and on bottom it is shale gas or shale oil. Here the permeability is in the range of 0.0001 millidarcy. Very, very low permeability from unconventional. When you go up, it is in millidarcies, 100 millidarcy or even 500 millidarcies and all that. The volume-wise shale gas contains the maximum gas, but it's very tight and it needs higher technology, higher and at a high cost. As you go down, the cost of oil or gas increases as you go down toward the shale gas. Like tight gas, coal gas, and then the conventional oil and gas. Because this gas is stored in pores and natural fractures in the form of free gas and rest in absorbed state. And not that all shales in the world are potential, they needs to be explored. And one thing about shale gas is that natural fractures, if it is there, then you have the more potential to produce shale gas. You can see here, this is just like a simple rock, and only in that, in a very some pores, it is there, and organic matter is here. And this is on a very in a state of microfractures. And what we do is we fracture them so that they get connected, and then we can produce this oil and gas from the shale. Another thing about this is that the production rate goes down very fast. In about 3 years or so, one sec. In about 3 years or so, the decline is almost 85%. So what we do need is that since the life is short, our production declines very fast, so we have to go for more number of wells. So this is one of the characteristics of the shale gas or oil, fast decline. These are some details. You know, in United States, this color is your figure given for 2015, and this line is for 2040. So in 2015, USA is producing something about share, and say almost 50% is or 60% is shale gas, shown by the orange or the orange color also. So shale gas is producing in United States almost 60% of the total gas, and in 2040 it's going to be quite substantial in United States. While in China, it's very less as of now, but they are planning that shale gas will contribute to almost 40-45%. And they are the main producers from the shale gas. Canada, Mexico, Algeria, Argentina, and United States. So this is billion cubic feet per day. So you can say here something like 75 billion cubic feet per day is the production was 2015. And out of that, almost 50-60% is from shale gas. Shale gas is a big producer in USA. Now, Next, let us go to next slide. These are some of the areas in that USA, like your Marcellus, then your Woodford, Fayetteville, and here is your down is Eagleford. This is here. So across US it is there, but maximum shale gas area is in the east. Say we are somewhere here about 30 TCF production, and out of that 50% is your shale gas, is shown in the green color. Okay, and here when you go towards the east is almost, it produces about 10 TCF, and balance is from the others. So I mean the story is that shale gas can produce lot of gas, shale can produce lot of gas, and it is being done in USA, in some other countries, and where we are. Actually, you can see this map. The blue one is the proven areas for the presence of shale gas. That is Assam, Campe Basin, Krishna Godavari, and Kaveri. And the orange ones, they are prospective. And the total in place that is estimated in 2013, that is risk shale gas is 584 TCF, and technically recoverable shale gas is about 96 TCF. If you go by this estimate, it's not very big, but we have to do a lot of jobs, and unfortunately we are very slow in this, because policy was announced in 2013. ONGC was given 50 blocks, Oil India Limited 6 blocks, and this Oil India Limited till 2019-20 they have only 4 shale wells in 2 basins, and ONGC till 2019-20 only 29 wells in 4 basins. And still we are in a very nascent stage. While in USA, in 1 year, they drill something like 25,000 wells. And here we are only some, not even in 100. So, I mean, we are in a very nascent stage, and something has got to be done. The reason is basically what I can understand is these are low producers, and lot of infrastructure has got to be created, which we are lacking. And I'll come to that in my other slides. And there is some issues on policy framework for facilitating shale gas and oil, because this is costly one, and government has to come in a big way. And then we have to also establish favorable regulatory and fiscal environment that is there. And some of the issues like land acquisition, water, availability of water, even the roads. So these are some of the issues where government has to come out in a big way to get this happen. Similar thing we have faced in CBM also. They are the low gas producers, and the companies have to face a lot of issues in starting. Okay. Getting sweet spot in shale gas is a big issue, and a lot of job has got to be done. This is just showing these are the conventional gas you can see here. These are tar sands normally. I mean, we get maximum in Canada. Some outcrops are there in most of the countries. In our country, we do have such outcrops for this oil and gas. In Assam, Digboi was the first oil field in India where we got oil, and there they could get it seeing the outcrop where the oil was also oozing. Similar condition happened in Ankleshwar, where gas was bubbling through one of the water pond nearby, and they could think that there seems to be some gas, and they did the exploration, they got gas. The story of ONGC is first drilling in Jwalamukhi, that is your Himachal Pradesh. The area there used to be Jwala Devi, that is gas coming from the subsurface, and in very little gas. And when you pass through the lantern or the deep, it will just give some flash of gas. So the Jwala Devi is still there. We did drilling there, ONGC, but we could not get commercial gas from the area. Similarly, we have got the tight sand, then we have got conventional associated oil and gas. These are tight sand gas, and the big is your shale, gas-rich shale. Volume-wise, they are very high as compared to the conventional sales and conventional associated gas and oil, but permeability is very low, gas rate is very low. So we have to do fracturing, we have to go for large number of wells, and we have to spend a lot of money. So the crux is that large number of wells, costly wells, so we have to optimize and use higher technologies in hydrofracturing or drilling. So technology and optimization, these are the two aspects which we must understand. That is essential. So then I will just take you to some of about this your seismic. Processing of seismic data is required as the raw data has a lot of noise. The processing basically cleans the data for further interpretation. I think you must be learning, whosoever is in geology or geophysics or petroleum engineering also. Then VPVS ratio or velocity ratio, low values indicate that there is gas in the seismic. And this map of velocity ratio indicates gas presence. Coherency and positive curvature, they are the basically measurement of or you can get presence of fractures or natural fault. So coherency map is very important in case of your shale gas formation, because that will show us the area of natural fractures, and this will certainly help us in targeting our area for exploration in case of shale gas. Positive curvature is a seismic attribute. It gives us a better picture, better visualization of fractures, And it will help better in targeting the zone for shale gas. You can see here, these are some of the black attributes we see on the map. And these are the areas where we can go for uh, shale exploration. And this gives a better picture, that is your positive curvature. So just remember coherency map and positive curvature map. They help us in getting a better picture for exploration for shale gas and oil. Lambda rho and mu rho, they are also the characteristic of the rocks. Lambda rho can be derived from sonic and density logs. It measures the incompressibility of the reservoir rock, and its low values shows the gas presence. Mu rho is again the rigidity of the rock, and it differentiates between sand and shales. And high mu rho means shale reservoir in this context. An image log show image of the wellbore, and these are part of the our logging studies or logging. Here, again for the seismic data, as I explained you, low lambda rho, high mu rho, and low VPVS, that shows the presence of shale gas. And what we do is that mechanical properties, like when we drill it and get those rocks also, then we have this Young's modulus, Poisson's ratio, so that we get to know the mineralogical and elastic moduli of the formulations, and combined with lambda rho, high mu rho, low VPBS, we can estimate the total organic content. That means I know the thickness, I know the you can say the some idea of this uh, porosity, and then we can calculate the total organic content. Logging gives a very big idea or very big tool for uh, getting the presence of gas in shale. It can ensure the presence of gas. And then what we do is that sweet spot identification from the coherency, positive curvature, as I explained you earlier, lambda rho and lambda mu rho, mud log during the drilling, gas source to confirm the reservoir. Yes, in this section, some gas show is there from the mud log. Density log, low density means gas presence. And we also do microseismic survey, which is required to see the fracture propagation after the hydrofracturing. We lower this your tool, and we create vibrations, and then we measure the propagation of the hydrofracturing. So this is also done. And then what we get is, suppose we, as I told you, these are the coherency map, and then we go for drilling like this. We are going for drilling, and fault related fractures as stage 7 and 8 we have got. Production and tracer logs also show that here we have got the high concentration at stage 7 and 8, stage 7 and 8. And this is also the high natural fractures, that is our high positive curvature and image log. And production log is your, these are the green histograms. So they show the highest concentration of gas. So this also corroborates our idea of gas presence over here. And during drilling, the mud log also gives us a sign for the gas. So a combination of seismic, logging, and drilling. When all these combined, then they identify the section where the gas uh, presence is there, and we can produce gas from the shale gas. So I'll come to now drilling. This just shows the activity in any asset dealing with shale gas, and basically whether it is shale gas or normal conventional oil and gas, activities are more or less same. However, some of the activities where it is different for shale gas, that is your well completion, hydrofracturing, then management of fluid, that is in a big way, management of waste, that is also in a big way. So when we start from uh, leasing, we have to first lease the land, acquire the rights, take the permissions, well planning and design, then scheduling, contracting, site preparation, drilling, well completion. Drilling, it is a you can say high tech drilling is there, because we have to go for more of horizontal wells, long long horizontal sections. Then we have got a specialized technique of hydrofracturing. Then we need lot of fluid for hydrofracturing. So this is a big requirement here in shale gas. Management of waste, that is also a requirement. Gathering, treatment, processing facilities, I can say it is similar to conventional. And establishing division of interest, that is also we have to do anyway. Operation and produce, I will be coming to that also. Payment and royalty, yes, that is there. Data gathering, resource assessment. Then based on that, again, you drill more wells, then get more gas, more oil, and the circle continues. Yeah, horizontal drilling has made it possible for success of shale gas and oil. It has changed the way oil and gas drilling is done by allowing producers to drill horizontally beneath urban areas. It takes less space on the top, on the surface. However, we can cover more areas, and uh, first we have to drill down vertically to a depth of say 5,000 to 7,000 feet, and then horizontally almost about say 5,000 feet. I mean, it can vary in different areas, but this is just as a idea. I can say that whatever you drill vertically, similar length you have to drill horizontally. Similar, I mean, a little less and all that. And special tools to curve the well, that is very important. And as of date, we have got quite specialized tools, MWD, LWD, and all that. I think that I have not dealt here, but there are specialized tools to curve the wells from vertical to horizontal, and then enter the gas bearing rock. And beauty of LWD, logging while drilling, is, and with the latest technique, that you will always be in the zone where you want to go. And that is it you can say it takes the drilling hole in the interested zone. If it deviates, then it makes the correction. So that way we are always in a sweet zone. And that is what I told you, that we have to find out the sweet zone and maximum contact with gas bearing rock formation. That's why we get more gas from a single well, and multiple zones can be drilled laterally from the same surface location. That is, from one surface location, I can go as high as say six wells or so, and it's a big gain for us, because we don't have to acquire so much of land, we don't have to move so much of equipment. You go at one place, drill 6 wells, directional wells, and do the hydrofracturing, and I will just show you how big the whole paraphernalia is. And that's why the horizontal wells are more economical for shale gas accession, as these cover large extent. So these are some of the new technologies which has helped in making the shale gas possible to produce. So this we must remember. This is a typical well. TVD is true vertical depth, 7,000 to 8,000 feet. Lateral, that is horizontal, you can say, 5,000 to 6,000 feet. So meter depth, say this is your meter depth, all through is around 7 plus 5, 12,000 to 14,000 feet from top to the end of the well, the toe of the well. And there are certain isolation casings, like it starts with 24 inch, then 16 inch, then 13 3 by 4, 8 5, 8 5, 9 5 by 8, and then your 5.5 inch casing. And here is the completion of the wells, where we have to perforate, then fractures. I'll come to that also. And this length is also quite big. I have seen in your pioneer field that 6 to 7 stages they were fracturing in one well from one go. So it's a very highly technical one, and this is technology. Again, it is driving our optimization of cost, optimization of time. As I told you that from one location, this is one location, we call it drilling pad, and I can go for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 wells. 6 wells I can go. And from a smaller footprint on top, we can go for such a big area to produce. And it can drain up to 200 to 400 acres. So in cases, it can be more also. So this is the extent, while from a small footprint on top, I can go for a big area draining. So that is the beauty of horizontal well. And this is only helping our, say this is a drilling pad. And from here, this is the rig. From here, I can drill 6 wells from this drilling pad only. And this can go right up to here or here or here or here. All around, it can drain the oil from the subsurface at a depth of say about 7,000 feet, 8,000 feet, and a lateral distance of again 4,000, 5,000 feet. So this is good for the environment, very cheap comparatively, because from one location I don't have to take all these equipments to different locations for drilling, rig up the rig, drill it, again shift it, So this has reduced the cost. Again, you can see, I think it's not given here. I'll show you the other slide. And water management is very important here because for hydrofracturing, we need lot of water. Okay, through truck, through pipeline. And I was talking to one of my friend in US that suppose I have to lay say 6 kilometer of surface flexible pipeline, how much time it will take? He shows, sir, it doesn't take more than 18 hours. I told how it is possible that you are laying 6 kilometers of water pipe. Then he explained to me, sir, we have got the reels and 2-3 trucks with reels will come. They will start laying on the side of the road, and this 6 kilometer pipeline he saw once, it was ready in one day. When we talk here in India, the first reaction will be it is not possible. And if it is not possible to do the jobs fast, then shale gas is not possible. So this is one thing we must remember, that infrastructure must take care and they should do the job very, very fast. Oh, 6:30. Anyway, enough time is there, more than half an hour. So it has got to be taken to the location, and the effluent water, the produced water has got to be again taken to disposal or taken to recycle. So this is a big job. You know, you have to take it central location, then main line, then trunk line, then a pad that is your drilling point, then to take pit for the effluent, and then overhead tank. And when it comes to hydrofracturing, this is still very, very big. Timeline is very, very important. This is a timeline for US conditions, and they get in weeks. I just wanted to show it how fast they are, and all activities are in weeks. While you can see that we started talking of shale gas in year 2013, 2013, and now we are in 2020, and hardly anything has been done. This is a challenge for us, our companies, that why they cannot do some of the jobs in weeks. When I have been in ONGC, I have been in Reliance, so I know the problems, the local issues, uh, the goons, the political structure. Everybody tries to take something from you, not in a right way, in a wrong way. So, the land acquisition is a big problem. Whatever you say, I mean, the problem only the oil industry people, they know. And I'm just trying to share this with you so that if you get chance, try to improve. And if we can't improve, then it's a very tough time. It's not only shale gas. Wherever we are, we have to improve. And we should get the job done in weeks, not in years. Hydrofracturing is a major activity for shale gas. This is a very simple diagram. This is the well, horizontal section, say around say 5,000 feet horizontal section or 3,000 feet horizontal section, and we have to fracture all the 3,000 feet. So we perforate first, then we go for fracturing of the zone, Then high pressure mixture of water, chemicals, and sand used to blast and hold that fracture. First you fracture it, then hold it. You don't allow it to collapse. And then slowly you start producing. So first you perforate, then fracture, and then you allow it to seal so that the sand, whatever has been blasted into the formation, that remain there. They make the rock open for gas to flow in. And this is hydrofracturing. It's a very sophisticated one, a big job, and an essential for producing shale gas or oil. And on the surface, this is a fracturing unit that fractures. Then we have got the water pond. Then we prepare it, and then we store it. So the whole fracturing process is a bit cumbersome, but we have the ways and means. The world is already doing it. I have a small question that while I was searching through net and all, how many wells are there on producing shale gas and oil in USA? The data I got was something like in a year they drill about or they have about say some 25,000 wells. And one data I got was around 1.5 million wells. That means 25 or say 20 lakh wells. So can somebody just check that data of cumulative wells producing shale gas and oil in USA? I know it's a big number. So that number I'm not able to basically confirm. That's why I'm raising this question to you. So as I told you, create fractures so that the fractures extend from borehole to the rock formation. Then hydrofracturing, pumping a fracturing fluid into the wellbore, rate sufficient to increase the pressure down the borehole, fracturing the surrounding rock formation. And keep this fracture open for injection. That means we use propellant or solid is added. And this method is called fracking or hydrofracking. And propellant is commonly a sieved round sand pumped into fracture. Many times we use ceramics just to have the rigidity or the stability. They are more harder than the sand, so it doesn't collapse. And propellant flow within the hydraulically created fractures and restrict those from closure, creating higher permeability. The basic idea of fracture is to create higher permeability so that the gas from the shale can come into the wellbore and then produce to the surface. Thus, the propped hydrofracture can then become a conduit for through which the fluid can produce back to the well. Okay, so this is basically in a very summarized way. I can just how it looks. This is a wellbore. You see from the top, and then we fracture. And this length is called fracture half length because when you go both sides, then it becomes the full length. And the oil or gas, they start coming through these fractures, and then we produce from the shale gas zones. As I told you in the horizontal section, uh, we do stage fracking or zipper fracking. Typically, it starts at the toe. A toe is say on this side. From the toe we start. So this is one stage. So like that, we can have 5, 6 stages. In one stage, we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clusters, perforation intervals. And in one go, we fracture all the 5 clusters. That is one stage. So this is done by pumping fracking fluid laden with your propent or sand, which are of different sizes, varying from 100 mesh to 20, 40, 30, 40 mesh size. And this is done in one go. Again, we stop this and go for the next one. So in many cases, in one go, they lower the whole string with all the stages, and one by one they fracture it, and that's a completion strings are there, and that is possible, and I have seen it being done in Pioneer Field when I visited them. Propent is your 100 mesh size is typically used in early portion of the job for enhanced distance and height diversion and as a propping agent. 100 mesh sand. The more number of mesh, 100 mesh means more finer. And when you put this 4070 or 4080 mesh, they are a bigger size. So initially we put the 100 mesh and then we increase the size of the particle or reduce the mesh size, so that the fracture conductivity enhances. And we do use some resin coated tailings where sand flowback is an issue. So what we do at the wellbore, near the wellbore, we put a resin coated tailings or the sand. Okay. And many cases we are using ceramic propellants also. And another thing is that these propellants, if they are increased propellant there and less fluid, we try to have so that the flow back is less and environmental issues are reduced. So this is what we do with the propellant. And this slide is very important from the frac design parameters. What we want to do is increase the permeability, then lateral length. We should go for a bigger length, and we must have the quality of the rock, because then we can plan our fracture. What should be the fracture pressures, and what is the thickness, what are the barriers, what is the depth, and then the whole frac is designed for maximum principal stress direction, in which direction the fracture should propagate, and basically it should be horizontally, not vertically. If it goes vertically, then it can create problem. It won't go into the shale section. It may go into the other sections where its basic purpose of increasing the permeability in the shale section is defeated. Then what is the lethality? Then stress types, then natural fractures. A lot of parameters are there. And good thing is that companies have worked on it and they have got some very good softwares where they can they design the frac program for the particular well. And what we have seen that they also do a lot of changes based on the results they get from the field, and then they modify their programs also based on the knowledge, based on the softwares and the field feedback. So it's a very sophisticated, you can say, topic, and many experts are only for frac design in a particular area, maybe fracking for shale, fracking for CBM, coal methane, fracking for even low permeability reservoirs, conventional reservoirs. And this is, the model, the deviation of the well, a pump schedule is entered into fracture model, numerous iterations with different pump schedules, perforation schemes, and other variables, and then they optimize the design. And what is the optimum design? That covers the height of the pay interval. It doesn't go vertically to some other thief zones, and creates a sufficiently conducive proppant fracture length, then minimize well interference, and provide the best production result based on the reservoir flow simulation. First, we simulate that what shall be the expected production from this well. Then we prepare the fracture model. Then we fracture the well. We see the result from the well. And accordingly, we do some iteration process and modify it or change it. Here, this is the frac whole system. We have got something like 20 frac units. They are that, and we can do it from many wells, 5-6 wells here we can frac. Proppant storage is here, frac tank is here, and then this is the control van which controls the whole operation. We have the coil tubing unit here, the wireline unit is here, the whole paraphernalia, and then there is a water storage, big water storage tank, and that can cater to more drilling pads and through pipeline. This is just to show here that water storage tank is here, but even say about 5-6 kilometers away, there is another drilling pad is there. It can be taken through the pipeline. So, I mean, the effort is tremendous effort, lot of, and very, very costly. So, you can imagine it's not simply drilling a well and getting back the production in a simple manner. In our country, we have done a lot of frac jobs, but certainly doing this type of huge, I mean, very, very big job, there are very few cases. In CBM, we have done some frac jobs, and rather all the wells in CBM have been fracked, but the job is of a smaller magnitude. Here in shale gas, it has got to be a big job, you can say. Fracturing fluid is also very, very important, because fracturing fluid, they carry the proppant and they keep the proppant in suspension, and this has also got to be designed based on the frac job design, and fluid systems are very, very important, like its viscosity, rheology, economics, and experience with the local formations, in a local area, which are the combinations that work well. Then we do a lot of lab studies, then what is available material, and then proper selection, proppant selection. So fluid systems, they carry the proppant, and then they help in pumping the proppants in the formation. So they are maybe linear gels, cross-link gels, foam, or friction reducer water. So it's a combination of various chemicals. As I told you that water resources also for a typical fracking job, that's again a case of uh, US case. A typical fracking jobs uses something like 3 million gallons of fracking fluid and some 15,000 gallons of chemical waste or flowback fluid. After the job, we flow it back, and that fluid we have to dispose of. So that's also a big job. And these are various chemicals that is given here that is required. And based on our frac design, we and chemicals available, and as per the lab results, we select them, and then we make it ready for the frac job. Production and operation. So from this, what we can get is that for drilling, it's a sophisticated drilling of horizontal wells, big horizontal section, quite large, quite long, and then we have to do fracturing. And all these two, that is drilling, fracturing, it involves a lot of software jobs and a lot of field jobs. It's a costly operation. So our objective should be to reduce and optimize the cost. How can you optimize the cost? By your making the operation, uh, I mean, taking less time, less money, less effort by combining the jobs, by proper good design. And now I'll come to production and operation. This is just had a visit and to Pioneer Field in US in 2013. We arrived in Houston at San Antonio, and from there we went to the field, that is Pawnee Field Office, Eagle Ford Field, as I showed you in the map, that is down south. Then that Pawnee Field Office, and then we had the tour of wells that you can see here. These are the tour of the wells. Then a process complex and drilling rig tour. We had a lunch at a rig, and then I could see a frac job. So in one day, from their office to the wells to process complex or central gas plant for the drilling rig and the frac job. It was a very, very tight schedule, but I'm happy to just share with you that it was done meticulously well, and a lot of learning was there. And one of the biggest learning I can say is that how to optimize, how to reduce cost, because success of shale gas production will only depend on that. Uh, Operations are managed from this office only. Okay. Uh, First, I have the safety brief. As I told you that safety is very, very important. And all the companies, they have a safety brief to anybody coming to that field. Must wear helmet, a must, safety hard shoes, dungarees, and that is your dress throughout your life in any oil and gas field. those who are in office, in some companies, in office also, they don't allow the normal dresses. Company dress is a must. But for the field, this type of dress is there. Dungaree, hard hat, goggles, gloves, shoes. It has its own complexities, sophisticated drilling and completion techniques, complex high-tech frac jobs. Whatever I told you, I saw it. And well-organized base office with good amenities, conference hall, office rooms, workshop, recreation area, gym, etc. These are some of the basics we do have in most of the companies. Rig, when we went there, it was a 10-year-old rig, and not too much of job, civil job. Area was hardened. Minimum civil work, only area was hardened. And rig had self jacking system. It will come and automatically it will jack up. So this is the system by which you can reduce the time for rig jacking up, and the whole rig can be jacked up in 2 days. While normal, if you go with a rig and prepare a civil work there, and then you call the crane, they will jack up the rig. It takes more time. So that is a time saving, that is a cost saving. And hydraulic operated catwalk and tubular casing handling system. It improves safety and time for tubular handling. It takes less time. Top drive system for drilling. SOBM used for drilling. Bioremediation for services. Oil-based mud was used, and bioremediation for this was done at the site itself. Because then we put some jappers or bacteria, and you remove that, make that eaten away by the jappers, and this is called bioremediation. And for sludge disposal, that is a good method, but we have to select the proper japper. In India also, we have got bioremediation processes in many industries, even in oil industry. And I know that we started to have jappers for our sludge disposal in KGD6. And all efforts are there to optimize or minimize the cost in operation, drilling, civil jobs, mobile rigs, etc. These are some of the figures that there were 10 rigs and almost 300 wells they had drilled and 280 wells they had fractured. And hundreds of miles of upstream pipelines, midstream pipelines are there. Again, this is the well completion, the conductor casings, isolation casings, and then this your horizontal section. It's about 5,500 feet horizontal section, on almost 7,000 feet is your vertical section. So this is a typical shale gas well. Again, as I showed you in that earlier slide also, there are large number of frac units, and then all the systems, including the your control van, where we control all the operations for fracturing. It's a big system, not less than 50 to 60 vehicles, and the fans and the tanks are covered at one location where we have to go for this fracking. Japper fracking, as I told you, that in one go I can frack 7 such clusters. and these fracking units are attached to this manifold, and you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4 wells, and here we are going for this coil tubing unit for doing some jobs, packer jobs. So from this location, and you can also see 1 or 2 behind, where so total it becomes 6 wells. So at one location, 6 wells, and this hydrofrac job is done in more than one wells also in one go. So very sophisticated, and I could see the discipline, the seriousness, the competence of the team there, who were doing all this job very meticulously and in a very organized manner. High volume, high pressure, multi-stage, complex frac job. They have the and Zipper method involves multi-stage frac job with isolation through wireline integration of CTU as per plan. At one location, 2, 3 wells are fracked simultaneously. So the whole system has got to be ready, prepared properly. Automation, monitoring, and control of all parameters are done through control van located on the site. I saw that van also, how they're monitoring all the activities there. One thing I just wanted to share with you, when the teams, they do these jobs, before any important job, they do toolbox talk. That is very, very important. All the team members will gather at one location. The supervisor will explain to them what are the jobs they are going to do, how they are going to do the job, what is their responsibility. If you have got any doubt, anybody should share at that moment only. So that way the whole team is ready for their next job. And they are totally synced. There is no divergence of views. They know their job, they know their responsibility. That's why the toolbox talk is also very, very important. And wherever you are, it's not only fracturing. At any rig, any platform, anywhere, important job, toolbox talk. And this is just like in India also, we have got the GGSS, then we go to central platform, and then we process it, and then we pump it. This is called pod. This is the wells, they are connected to a pod. And point of delivery, here, there the very interesting thing is that these wells owners are the public where the wells are drilled or from where we are producing. Not like in our country where the well owner is a company or the government, and government has to be given the royalty. There the royalty is to be given to the each owner, and that's a very, very tough job, And you can imagine hundreds of thousands of owners are there, and if some discrepancy in measurement at pod, the guy comes and starts hue and cry that why my production has gone down, and you have to explain, and for each owner, each well, there has got to be measurement system. So it's a very, very big job. And they explained to me that they have a very nightmare, and always they are very, very wary of these owners. And then this gas is collected to the central gas plant where we process it, and then it goes to the pipelines. Okay. I'm at a well. Mineral owner or land owner require separate lines to pod. They say that no, I should have my separate measuring arrangement. For each owner, there has to be a separate measuring system. And no regular manning, only once in a day. People don't get stationed there. You can see here it's a minimum band. You can see here not such a fencing or a boundary that we see in any oil installation in India, only barbed fencing, nothing much. Bare minimum facility, skids on small cylindrical pipes, only skids. Minimum of civil work, cellar pit at ground level, rig can directly approach. No permanent pig barrel, portable pig barrel they keep. And simple chemical injection portable skid. This is just like a drum. They connect it. There is a solar panel which runs the pump, a small pump here. The chemical is pumped, and the empty barrel is again taken by a truck and they bring with a chemical filled tank. And again, it is simply connected. Very simple, systems. And it's all solar batteries, no power, no electricity, no manpower. Only one person comes or one team comes in a day, and they just check the things and report to the base. Each mineral owner has separate metering, Orifice meter for gas and Coriolis meters for liquid. Once meter transported to GCP in two lines, oil and gas, produced water separated, transport. These are the produced water tank. Fit for purpose facility only. Very minimum facility, very minimum facility. You can see here the land or the total area is only hardened. It's not too much of civil job. Even the fencing is also only barbed wire fencing. This is a central gas plant and bare minimum facility, not even a big control room. There is only some panels. So non-populated area that is there, the population is less. Control room is basically field panel room. All equipment modular with skids. We also produce S2S there, but operators have monitors only on body. There is no centralized system for S2S monitoring. Total area is only hardened, minimum civil job, fit for purpose facility. There was some thought that invite their engineers to our CBM project of Reliance project to share the knowledge and experience in frac jobs. And setting our project and operations team for field visit to see for themselves how this optimization process in facilities and cost. That's very important. We should not go for a very costly installations because then it will defeat the purpose of optimized or cost-effective shale gas project. And Director General Mine Safety also, they should visit this facility and really don't make a huge regulatory requirements of 90 meters of flare and 6 feet of fencing and all that. And in designing also, why we should have such a elaborate design. These are my thoughts. And I'm just sharing with you also that somebody. Yes, for these hydrofracturing jobs in shale gas production, these hydrofract wells, they can create some fractures and that they can come to the surface also. There are some instances and uh, uh, there are some instances in India also in Mehsana field where this your heavy oil is produced. So in the water table, they started getting gas. So we had to take a lot of action to control it. So these are some issues which we have to see how best we can do it so that we don't pollute and we don't create environmental hazards. And that is our responsibility. Now, this is, I'm just giving you one slide. I have copied from one presentation from one of my friends because I liked it very much. And that's good for you guys. From data to wisdom, this triangle, you know, data remains data if you don't use it properly. Data becomes information, and information is just reporting who, what, where, when. That information becomes knowledge when you say how it happened. And then we understand why it happened. And then we learn, and learning is our wisdom. And we use it in our planning for future. So this is the cycle we do follow. The data, information, knowledge, understanding, wisdom. And that is our excellence in operation. That's what I always tell. And that is applicable anywhere, wherever you are, either in subsurface or in service companies or in drilling or in production, wherever you are. And these days, when we have got million trillions of data, and if you don't use them, they go west. And if you use them, they are real mine of knowledge. And that is wisdom. I just recollect one example. I'm just sharing with you. One well got triple SB, subsurface safety valve got closed. And the beauty in KGD6 wells is that each well is all parameters are monitored 24/7 and every minute, every second you can say. So I had to find out what time really, at what moment the well closed. And we analyzed the data, all the data of pressure, temperature, and then we could pinpoint that at 2 o'clock in the morning, at 12 minutes, at 18 seconds, this flapper got closed. So that is, and then you know that what happened, then you will work out why it happened, and then we could open the well also. So these are the things which this triangle speaks of: data, information, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Wisdom is used for planning. Why is used for proactive action, event recognition. As I told you, when the triple SB closed, data report that it got closed. When it got closed, we just check it, how it got closed, why it got closed, do the planning. Again, you check the data. So like that, there are so many instances where we are getting the data and we are using the data for the benefit of the operation. Same way these days now, these are, data collection from the rig to the real-time technology center, then your monitoring, and then the feedback. And data analytics is playing a big role. And these days, application of drones, optimization of services are being done in a big way. And many of you will be certainly involved in such jobs in future to come. And we have to always try to reduce the cost. This slide only says that cost per foot, how we can reduce. This is about drilling. And similarly, we have to go for fracturing. Similarly, you have to go for operation. how every drilling hours, how we can reduce, total depth, how we can improve, average drill days. Suppose I drilled a well in 15 days earlier. Now I should plan how I can drill in 13 days or 12 days or 10 days. So, and with the help of the data analytics and improvement in technology and our operational knowledge, it across the world. And you can see here average well saving $1,35,000 per well. They saved in their study. And average bit saved, number of bits they saved too. Drilling cost say 25. I mean, I think so many improvements have been observed by meticulously planning and doing the job. Yeah, I just wanted to share something about this Indian context. I have got only 2 slides more. Finding sweet spots. The job is how to prepare a best in industry workflow and to suit our context. That is the job of the subsurface teams. One idea is that to start with, can we try to get shale oil or gas zones in the existing producing fields so that we can use the available facilities. That is your say maybe GGS or maybe wells, because lines are connected. So a lot of expenditure we can save and we can have some pilot project. So this can be done only by Oil India, ONGC, where we have got old fields and we know the areas where we are producing, whether it is KG Basin or Cambay Basin or Assam. Something can be done. But what I find that these companies, because this is a low gain project, so it is always on the backbench jobs. So people don't give too much of importance. But if we give this importance and try to do something, maybe near the existing fields we can get some wells, we can produce from shale, and we can show to the world that yeah, from the existing fields also, from the shale sections we can produce. Optimize drilling cost, join with the company, some out of box ideas, we can do it. One idea where people are working is fracturing without water or minimum water. Can I use liquid nitrogen? Some of my friends told me that in this area, if you can do it, then lot of environmental issues and water requirements can be reduced. Fracturing without water or minimum water. Can somebody take up this job or study? Bare minimum GGS surface facility for shale gas. Cost reduction measures in all aspects of shale gas activities. That is very, very important. So what is the takeaway? It's a complex one. Shale gas business is a complex one. USA, Argentina, China, they are leading. India is in nascent stage. Subsurface complexities are to be addressed. Large number of wells in low production and less life cycle. This is the reality, but still people are making it cost efficient, profitable. That's why they are producing TCFs of gas in USA. High-tech systems in drilling and improve efficiency. For drilling also, yes, it has got to be done. Advances in hydrofracturing. I think service companies, they are coming up with all new ideas, and improvement is there everywhere. And utilization of technology, the systems where it reduces the cost, fit for purpose facilities. Technology, economics, and cost optimization is the driver, is the key for success of shale gas. And environmental impact is to be addressed. So these are the some of the takeaways. I have got details from DGS report, some SP, AGP conference papers, Google, YouTube. It was my RIL, Reliance Industries Limited visit report, some company presentations. My mail ID is pkverma@gmail.com. And YouTube, you can go and visit me at Prem Verma Poems. And thanks for patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We are eagerly waiting for the next interactive session. Now let's move towards the question answer session. If you have any questions related to the topic, you can post your questions in the comment box with your name. So the first question is from Amit. He says,
Yeah.
"What are the most important risks arising from the exploration of shale gas?"
There is no risk from exploration from this shale gas, or and the risk, whatever is there, that is very, very minimum, and it is being managed by all the companies. When you talk of the physical risk, but if you want to know from the technical point of view, I think a lot of technology is there. So we are able to manage such risk. And from hydrofracturing, there is no risk, because I have seen if you plan it properly, why there should be risk? This is a job, and you have to plan it. So it's because it's a high pressure job. Somebody can say it's a high pressure job, there could be accident, but no, we have been managing in the industry, and there is no any such appreciable risk. And as a matter of fact, even you are walking on the zebra crossing, there is a risk. So you can't stop crossing the road. What you have to do is you take proper care. You look to the left and then to right and then to left again, and then you cross the zebra crossing. You follow the safety procedures. There is no risk. Next.
Thank you, sir. Another question is from Samar. He asks that, can we use foam-based drilling fluid for the production of shale gas?
Foam based, that is what I just said in my presentation, that these are some new areas, and that is shale gas or normal conventional gas. Foam is being used in some cases, and you have to just check the suitability for this, and companies have been working on it, and yes, you can. But proper candidate should be there. That is a must.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mohit. He asks, when does the thermal expansion of shale become important?
There is no thermal expansion of shale. I don't think there is any such thing is there.
Thank you, sir. So the last question from Vedanti. She asked that, what are the risks from shale gas development and hydraulic fracturing?
I told you the only risk, sometimes what we have observed, whether it is conventional gas or oil and unconventional, uh, seepage of gas into the formation, this water table, where we are using for our purposes. There are some cases. But that with the technology and the techniques what is used, we have been able to control it. Even in some areas in California or somewhere, people complained of some small earthquake because of the frac jobs. But that, those are some fears but as such, when the industry has developed so much and lakhs of wells have been drilled in that country, if it was such a any serious issue, it not have developed. And another thing is that USA people are more vocal. They are very, active in having their views. So, in my view, we don't have any such issue. If some issues are there, they are local issues, and that crops up even for the conventional one. And what I'll just like to say is that this type of issues are being managed very nicely across world and in India also. So it's not be a topic of concern. Yes.
Thank you, sir. That's the end of the question and answer session. So now, leading to the end of this session, I call upon Mr. Abhishek Gade to convey the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Suraj. I, Abhishek Gade, am deeply grateful to have got this opportunity to thank Mr. Prem Kumar Vermaji on behalf of Nauroji Wadia College SP Student Chapter for sharing his bit of his ocean-like knowledge with us. We are hoping to have many more such very knowledgeful sessions with you, sir. We express our gratefulness towards our principal, Dr. Badane, for giving us the opportunity to arrange this webinar. I would also like to thank the organizers and my fellow mates for being active and attentive. We had a great time having you all and looking forward to many more such workshops, engaging more people and on a great level. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Sir, when are you coming back to India?
It's a long time now. I think I'm planning to come back in April,
Okay.
but we are in communication
Well,
all day,
that's
all
good.
night, so no issue. Yes,
No,
I'd like to
absolutely.
visit your college, but when I come back in April, then maybe whenever it is open in May or June or July, I'll certainly make a visit to Pune and meet you people. Thank you.
In fact, I was just going to mention that, sir. When are you planning to come to Pune?
No, I'll come.
Definitely. Yeah,
I just want to come and meet all of you.
sure. It'll be a great pleasure and honor for us to host you here.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Have a good day, sir. Yeah.
Good day, good day.
Thank you, sir.